Okay, so picture this. A typical Friday night in the suburbs. I was just hanging out with my friends, doing the usual teenage stuff, talking nonsense, laughing too loud, and wandering around the neighborhood without a care in the world. Little did we know that night would turn into a nightmare I couldn't shake off. We were on the outskirts of town, near the edge of a dense, looming forest, the kind of place where urban legends are born. The air was thick with humidity, and the buzzing of cicadas created an eerie symphony as we walked through the trees, far from the familiar safety of streetlights. As we exchanged silly ghost stories and dared each other to venture deeper into the darkness, an unsettling feeling crept over us. It started as a prickling on the back of my neck. You know, the kind that makes your skin crawl for no apparent reason. I shook it off, thinking it was just my overactive imagination playing tricks. But then, a twig snapped somewhere in the distance, and the laughter died down. We all exchanged nervous glances, suddenly aware that the woods weren't as empty as we thought. The atmosphere shifted from playful to tense in an instant. We decided to head back, quickening our pace. That's when I heard it. Footsteps, not ours. Someone else's, echoing through the quiet night. I froze, my friends freezing with me, as we strained to listen. The footsteps were deliberate, purposeful, and unmistakably closing in on us. Panic set in, and without a word, we broke into a sprint, our hearts pounding in our chests like a tribal drum, signaling impending danger. The footsteps behind us quickened, matching our pace. Fear fueled our legs as we tore through the trees, branches scratching against our skin in the darkness. I stole a glance over my shoulder, and there it was, a shadowy figure, cloaked in darkness, emerging from the trees like a ghost. I couldn't see their face, just a silhouette that seemed to glide effortlessly through the night. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. We were being chased. The adrenaline surged, propelling me forward. Fear and desperation mingled as I tried to make sense of the situation. Who was this person, and why were they chasing us through the woods? The questions echoed in my mind, but there was no time to dwell on them. As we reached the edge of the forest, the streetlights offered a sliver of safety. My friends and I burst out onto the familiar asphalt, our breaths coming in ragged gasps. We dared not look back, but the echo of footsteps persisted, fading into the night. We stumbled into the closest house, frantically banging on the door, our faces pale with terror. A bewildered neighbor opened the door, and we spilled out a jumbled tale of being chased through the woods. They called the police, but when they arrived, the mysterious figure was long gone. That night left a mark on all of us, an unshakable fear that lurked in the shadows, a reminder that danger could be closer than we ever imagined. The woods, once a place of curiosity and adventure, now held the lingering specter of the unknown. And so, as you listen to my story, remember that in the quietest moments, footsteps in the dark may not be your own. The suburbs, with their calm facade, can hide secrets that chase you through the night, leaving you with the chilling echo of footsteps that refuse to fade away.
All right, so buckle up, because I've got a story that will make you think twice before stopping at a deserted truck stop in the dead of night. This happened to me not too long ago, and the memory still sends shivers down my spine. I was on a solo road trip, driving through the endless expanse of darkness on a desolate highway. The only companion I had was the hum of the engine and the rhythmic drumming of rain against the windshield. The gas gauge was flirting with empty, and my stomach was growling louder than the thunder that echoed in the distance. I spotted a flickering neon sign on the horizon, Last Chance Truck Stop, a beacon of hope in the sea of darkness. The rain intensified as I pulled into the dimly lit parking lot, the worn-out asphalt reflecting the eerie glow of the neon lights. As I stepped out of the car, the air was heavy with the scent of wet pavement and diesel fumes. The truck stop looked frozen in time, a relic from a forgotten era, its windows fogged with decades of stories whispered by long-haul truckers passing through. I made my way inside, the door creaking as I pushed it open. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting an unforgiving glow on the faded linoleum floor. A lone cashier, an old man with weary eyes, looked up from behind the counter and greeted me with a nod. I grabbed a candy bar and a bottle of water, my eyes scanning the empty aisles. That's when I noticed her, a young woman, alone and huddled in the corner booth, nursing a cup of coffee. Something about her demeanor caught my attention, an unease that mirrored my own. I decided to grab a quick bite and join her, figuring a bit of company might make the place feel less desolate. As I approached, she looked up, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and relief. We exchanged nods, and I took a seat across from her. She introduced herself as Sarah, a fellow traveler making her way to the West Coast. We exchanged small talk, but there was an undercurrent of tension that neither of us could ignore. The rain drummed against the windows, creating a dissonant soundtrack to our conversation. As we chatted, the atmosphere inside the truck stop began to change. The fluorescent lights flickered, casting eerie shadows that seemed to dance in the corners. The old man behind the counter stared at us with a curious intensity, his eyes narrowing as if he knew something we didn't. Sarah's eyes darted toward the entrance, her grip on the coffee cup tightening. I followed her gaze, and that's when I saw him, a figure standing in the doorway, cloaked in darkness. His eyes, devoid of any humanity, bore into us with a malevolent intent. Fear seized us both, and without a word, we bolted toward the exit. The figure pursued us, his footsteps echoing through the empty truck stop like a nightmarish drumbeat. We ran through the rain-soaked parking lot, the cold wind biting into our skin. I reached my car, fumbling for the keys, and Sarah scrambled into the passenger seat. The figure emerged from the truck stop, his eyes gleaming with an unsettling determination. I slammed the car into gear, tires screeching as we peeled out of the parking lot. As we sped away, the figure disappeared into the darkness, swallowed by the shadows of the night. The rain beat against the windshield like a relentless drum, and the truck stop faded in the rearview mirror, a haunting memory etched into the desolate highway. Sarah and I didn't speak much after that. The encounter left us with a shared understanding that some things are better left unspoken. The highway stretched ahead, a winding path through the unknown, and the memory of that night lingered like a phantom hitchhiker in the back seat. So, as you listen to my tale, remember this. The highway of shadows holds secrets that can turn a routine pit stop into a heart-pounding encounter with the unknown. The Last Chance truck stop became a chapter in our journey, a place where the line between the living and the shadows blurred into a haunting dance along the lonely road.
I've got a tale that'll make your skin crawl. It happened to me not too long ago, and I can't shake off the memories of that fateful night, a night when the shadows played tricks and the line between reality and nightmare blurred. It was a moonless night, the kind that feels like the darkness stretches on forever. I was out for my nightly run, headphones blasting my favorite tunes, and the rhythmic thud of my sneakers hitting the pavement echoing in the quiet suburban streets. Just a routine jog, or so I thought. I took my usual route, winding through the dimly lit neighborhoods and deserted parks. The air was crisp, and the distant hum of traffic was the only reminder of the waking world. It was peaceful, the kind of tranquility that lulls you into a false sense of security. As I jogged along, a subtle unease settled over me, the feeling of being watched. I brushed it off as my imagination playing tricks in the lonely night. But the sensation persisted, growing more tangible with each step. I stole glances over my shoulder, half expecting to see a pair of eyes staring back from the shadows. And then, as I turned a corner into an isolated stretch of road, the unease escalated into something more sinister. Footsteps, not mine, echoed in the silence. I yanked out my earphones, the rhythmic thuds matching the beat of my racing heart. Panic set in as I quickened my pace, the footsteps keeping pace with mine. I stole another glance over my shoulder, and there he was, a figure cloaked in darkness, his features obscured by the night. His eyes, an unnatural gleam in the darkness, locked onto mine. Fear gripped me, but I pushed myself to run faster, my breaths coming in ragged gasps. As I sprinted through the deserted streets, the figure remained a relentless pursuer. His footsteps echoed like a haunting drumbeat, each step a reminder that escape was slipping away. I veered into alleys and side streets, desperate to shake off the unseen predator. but he matched every twist and turn with an unsettling precision. The night seemed to stretch on forever as I ran, my body pushed to its limits. The once familiar streets now felt like a labyrinth of shadows, and the figure's presence was a constant weight on my shoulder. I could feel his gaze, an unrelenting force that seemed to penetrate the very core of my being. I reached a park, its swings swaying in the breeze like eerie pendulums in the night. The moon cast long shadows that seemed to dance with a life of their own. I glanced around, searching for a way out, but the figure closed in, his footsteps echoing through the quiet park. With a surge of adrenaline, I sprinted towards the park exit, but as I approached, the figure materialized in front of me, a phantom in the night. I skidded to a stop, my breath catching in my throat. His eyes, void of humanity, bore into mine, and a voice, cold and emotionless, echoed through the darkness. "You can't escape the night." Panic set in, and I turned and ran in the opposite direction, the figure now a relentless pursuer at my heels. The night seemed to warp around us, the park becoming an otherworldly maze that defied all logic. The trees whispered secrets, and the shadows reached out like grasping hands. I stumbled upon a dilapidated building at the edge of the park, its windows shattered and doors creaking on rusty hinges. With no other option, I barged in and hid in the darkness, praying the figure wouldn't find me. The footsteps approached, each one a thunderous heartbeat in the eerie silence. The figure's gaze swept the room, and for a moment, our eyes locked. Time stood still as the realization hit me. This was more than a chance encounter. The figure with his haunting presence was something beyond human understanding. But then, as if the night itself had swallowed him, the figure disappeared. The footsteps faded, and the darkness released its grip on the room. I waited, my breath shaky and uneven, before cautiously stepping out into the night. The streets were empty, the figure gone without a trace. The park, once a refuge, now held the lingering echoes of a supernatural encounter. I made my way home, haunted by the memory of the figure in the night, his cold eyes and emotionless voice etched into my mind.